Namaste, my friends. We're going to learn about the Graphic Ephemeris, which is a tool for forecasting. And I'm going to do Robert Redford. So I was looking at Madonna here in the previous videos. I'm going to clear all entries, start a new list, type in Redford. There he is. I'll hit Alt-G, which is the fast way to read that in, Alt-O. I've got it. I'm using the speed keys rather than clicking with the mouse. And now I want progression, so I click on progression. It defaults to today. I have the option on here to show the time of day, which doesn't make a lot of difference for progressions, but defaulting to 12 hours universal time, also known as Greenwich Mean Time. And we'll do secondary progressions, and let's do solar arc directions. The progress method down here is Natal and right ascension. That's popular, and also solar arc is popular. I'll leave that Natal and right ascension. I won't change the place, I'll leave it the birthplace. I click OK, and it's calculated the progress chart. There's the progress chart. I can click here. There's the solar arc directed chart for today, and here's the natal chart. Okay. So I've got those three charts. Now, let's look at the Graphic Ephemeris. How would we do that? See if we can tell what's happening for Robert Redford in his life. So, well, it's a form of forecasting, so I could go to forecast. It also happens to be under Ephemeris, but I'll go to forecast. There it is, Graphic Ephemeris, and it's in this module called Kepler Workshop, which means it'll come up in a separate window, so that we have the main Sirius module and the Kepler Workshop both visible at the same time. So it's calculated it. Down here at the bottom of your windows are the programs you're running in what's called the taskbar. And go back to Sirius. I can click here and be back to Kepler Workshop. You can also click on this guy to go back, but I'm in the habit of just clicking down at the bottom of my computer monitor down there in the taskbar to jump between them. It's nice because you can have both of these things up at the same time. Okay, so what are we looking at? We're looking at a plot of the planets. On the right side are the natal positions, because I came in here. I must have come in here when let me click on Sirius. Yeah, I was viewing his natal chart. And so when I clicked on the Graphic Ephemeris, it said, okay, let's show you his natal chart and the transits. So there's the transiting planets, and the natal planets are here. They're horizontal. So this Mars is the transiting Mars, which was in Aries in March 2013. I'm looking at January through December of 2013. Up here it also shows, I can change the dates, beginning date right there. I can also right arrow and left arrow through the time period. So if I click the right arrow, it'll take me to the next year. If I click the left arrow, it'll go to the previous year. So that's real handy to scan through different periods of time. So there's the transiting Mars, was in Aries, and coming down here in April, it's moved into this area here as Taurus. And down at the bottom, right down here, it also shows me what date and what position I'm looking at. I can also put that date that's down here and position right in the cursor if you want to. I'll show you that. I'll right-click, and down here it says what kind of cursor do you want. If I say non-transparent and I click OK, it'll recreate this graph, and now you see the date while you move the cursor. Some people like that. And also if I right click, and I'll show you the transparent version of it, where instead of having this white background, you know, it'll be transparent, and it looks like that. So, you know, it's up to you. It's also shown down here as well. I'm going to right click and remove that. I just wanted you to know about that and tell it not to put anything, the position and the date with the cursor. because it's kind of distracting for teaching purposes, I think. I just want to, focus your attention on transiting Mars, coming down, and what does this mean when it crosses one of those planets? What does it mean when transiting Mars crosses transiting Jupiter? How do I know that's transiting Jupiter and not natal Jupiter? Because the natal planets are yellow and they're horizontal because they're not moving. So this means that transiting Jupiter and transiting Mars are conjunct, and there's a little conjunction symbol. And at the bottom of my window, it tells me that's about July 22nd at about 3 degrees Cancer. So there it is. You can see transiting to transits, transiting planet to transiting planet. I could also see that Mars conjuncts natal Uranus right here around May 3rd at about 10 degrees Taurus. If I go back to his natal chart, where is his Uranus? 9.5 degrees Taurus. So exactly, this, confirmed. Because I'm looking at a year, and if I move my mouse just a little bit, the position changes quickly. If I go down to 1 month, I could see it more precisely. Or any shorter time period. Obviously, the shorter the time period, you can get more precision with what you're looking at. So there you go. That's the graphic ephemeris showing the transiting planets and the natal planets. What about Sun, Mercury, and Venus? What happened to them? Well, when I was using the graphic ephemeris the previous time, I had left them out, and it remembers what I was doing. It remembers the time period. I happen to have the year of 2013. There's the year there as well, and up here's a summary of what we're looking at. And we're looking at an ephemeris that shows the planets from 0 to 360, which is actually not the usual way a graphic ephemeris is done, but for teaching purposes, I'm starting with this. And I'll show you the other things you can do later. So, what happened to Sun, Mercury, and Venus? I'll right-click is the fast way to get, or I could click on Preferences to get to the settings. And I see my settings. I can select what planets I want, what charts I want. I could put in the progressions in solar arc, which we'll do in a minute. I've got transits selected. It's down here, whether you want the transits, whether you want the natal, the progressed, and the solar arc direction. All the charts that I've entered into Sirius are shown here. Here's the beginning date, and here's the time period, 1 year. And over here, by the way, it says to use the all 360 degrees. I'll show you that later. But my topic now is what planets, and over here it says aspects. I can select my aspects that I want to show. It shows the glyph on the aspect. I can also show midpoints. So I could plot a midpoint on there. I can plot angular distance between things. So those are kind of advanced features. What else can I do here for planets? I can select my natal planets. I've got Sun through Pluto. I don't have ascendant in midheaven. I could check those if I want and add them in. And here's my transits. I don't have Sun, Moon, Mercury, or Venus. So I'll just check them, and you can select your planets for progression. Here we have ascendant and midheaven selected as well. Degree for year, day for a month, month for year, and solar arc. Day for year, of course, is also known as secondary progressions. And here's the thickness of the lines. I'm going to make the transit 2 pixels thick, so you can see that, and I've added all of these transiting planets. Let's see what happens. I'll click OK. So, what the graphic ephemeris does for you is it allows you to see transits, progressions, solar arc directions, and natal planets all graphed out, showing their motion. And I've made the transits thicker just to show you what that looks like. And you could actually see transit to transit by whenever they cross. You can also see transit to natal to see whenever they cross. And now here's the moon, which is moving fast. It moves faster than the other thing, so it's more vertical. If I do 10 years or 20 years with moon, they're going to be so vertical it would cover my entire graph and I'd have a mess. So there it is. I'm going to remove transiting moon because I find that a little bit overwhelming, and I'm not going to use the moon in this the transiting moon in this tutorial. So I'm going to remove it. Just right-click, go to planets, click on that. Uncheck the moon, click OK, and up it comes. Now I'm looking at my notes here. I'm going to show you transiting Mars to natal Pluto is what I said in my notes. I actually made some notes this time. How about that? And the transiting, what did I just say? Transiting Mars to natal Pluto. So here's natal Pluto. Here's transiting Mars. When I put my cursor on that at the bottom, because I removed the showing the date and the position in the cursor, so I have to look at the bottom. So this is about August 24th at about 26 to 27 degrees Cancer. Let's confirm that in the timeline and see if that's true. So I go back to Sirius, and his Pluto is at, well, it's 27 degrees Cancer, so I didn't put my mouse at exactly the right place. And I'll go to the timeline. It's hard to place your cursor exactly perfectly on the graphic ephemeris when you're looking at it a whole year. You move your mouse just a little bit and it moves it a few days. And what I want to do, I want to do transit to natal, and I'm looking at transiting Mars to natal Pluto in the month of August. So let's change this to August 1st, 2013 for 1 month. I think I've done that properly. And here are the transits. So I want to see something coming in here around August. Transiting Mars. Conjunct Pluto is right here, August 24th. So transiting Mars, conjunct natal Pluto, and here I've turned on the option to show the positions, and they're in his 5th house using this system Placidus houses. If I look at his wheel again, we can see that Pluto is in the 5th house, 4th, 5th house. And transiting Mars is right there conjuncted. So I can look at it in a bi-wheel, I can look at it in a timeline, I can look at a transit text listing, and you can see it in a graphic ephemeris. So if you can see the same thing in so many different ways, which one should you use? Well, different astrologers like different methods. Now, let's show another example. I'm going to remove transiting Sun, Mercury, and Venus to make this graph not as noisy. So we just see, more towards the outer planets. I'll leave Mars in there. Let's remove transiting Sun, Mercury, Venus. I thought I set this back to 1 pixel. 1 pixel, thank you. I guess I didn't. So, transiting Mars through Pluto. Just going to simplify so it doesn't look so noisy. It won't have as many things up there. It won't have all these fast-moving lines. There, and I've made the lines thin again, the transiting lines down to 1 pixel. So you see some of the different options that are available. So I've removed that, and I'm going to, in my notes I say add secondary progressions. So what can you do here? We can see the transiting planets, we see the natal planets. I'll right-click, I'll add the progressed planets. I could also add solar arc, I'll show you that later. And what will that look like? Let's find out. Okay, and we're going to look at progressed Venus to natal Jupiter, according to my notes. Can you believe it? I actually made notes. I prepared. I always prepare to some extent, but sometimes I kind of improvise a lot. So anyway, it's showing the progressed planets here in pink. And there they are, these pinkish ones, and they're slower moving. Okay, here's the ascendant midheaven. What's the deal with that? Let me right-click. Oh, I've got time method selected for progressions. Let's set that to, I think that's my default in series, and it picked that up. That's because I was playing around. Time method, they move very fast. No, I had NABOD. It has its own default, which was time. Let me set that to NABOD. Click OK. So there's different methods of progressing the ascendant midheaven. This is not a usual method of progressing ascendant midheaven. They're moving very quickly. When you use the time method, okay, now I'm back to my normal, more typical progressed ascendant, which moves only about a degree a year, so it's almost horizontal. In fact, with all of the progressed planets, they're all moving very slow. The outer progressed planets really not moving at all as far as this graph is concerned. Maybe a minute or two over a year. And the progressed moon moves a little faster, 12 to 15 degrees a day, which is 12 to 15 degrees a year, so it's moved a little more noticeably. Okay, so let's look at progressed Venus to natal Jupiter, as I said on my notes. Oh, I see why I wanted to do that. Look at that. Here's Jupiter, natal Jupiter, yellow, and progressed Venus right on top of it. In fact, just sitting there. So Graphic Ephemeris is another way to get a visual. The timeline also gives you a nice, different kind of visual. But here you're seeing the actual motion of the planets. Okay. Well, let's look at this. It looks like it's exact somewhere in here. It's hard to tell exactly when. Oh, here it shows the conjunction symbol, right around September 1st. So that's helpful, that conjunction symbol. Otherwise, I wouldn't know, when that happens. All right, so let's look at it in the timeline. I'll click on Sirius. I'll go to my timeline, and I'll right-click on the timeline. And what do I want to do? I'm going to run the year of 2013 with progressions only. So I'm going to remove the transit to natal. Actually, I could leave that there. It's not going to hurt anything. Let's do progress to natal for 1 year. I'll start January 1st, 2013 for 1 year. I'll click OK. And I'm looking for progressed Venus to natal Jupiter, and there it is. Progressed Venus, conjunct natal Jupiter. His Jupiter happens to be in his 9th house. And there it is, September 1st. So, same exact information shown in a different way. Here you see it with a particular orb that was used here, and for this thing. Shows the orbs down here. Only a half a degree orb. So it's only showing it when it gets really exact. I don't know if I customize that or if that's the default. But anyway, so it's only showing it starting in April. But this is just showing when it's super exact. And the Graphic Ephemeris shows it in a different way. So there you go. Now, they look right on top of each other, and that's partly because I've got 360 degrees here. The whole zodiac squeezed into this area. So you might say the resolution isn't that great in terms of refining, but it's good enough for what we're trying to do, which is to see when things aspect each other. All right, now another interesting thing here in the Graphic Ephemeris, I say transiting Jupiter and the progressed moon. Oh yeah, this is interesting. Here's transiting Jupiter, was going retrograde. Going up means it's going retrograde. Coming down. And look how it almost aspects the progressed moon. So you can see transits to progressions. You can see, whatever you plot, you can see those relationships around October, November. So let's look at that in the timeline. We'll select transits to progressions. We can right-click. I won't do that. I will do transit to day for year progression. I'll run it for that year. And we'll see what we see in the timeline. So I'm just confirming for you that you're getting the same information, whether you look at it in a Graphic Ephemeris or whether you look at it in a timeline, and they will confirm each other. So here's the transiting, what am I looking for? Transiting Jupiter to progressed moon. is right here, transiting Jupiter, conjunct progressed Moon, in the October-November time period. No date, meaning they're not exact. Same exact information shown two different ways. Here you see it in the timeline. Here you see it transiting Jupiter, coming down, almost getting very, very close. No conjunction symbol, meaning Kepler Workshop has decided it never became quite exact, but it got extremely close. Another way of looking at it, some people really love the Graphic Ephemeris. Different astrologers use different tools. Now let's go ahead and add the solar arc and see what that shows. If I right-click, I can just add the solar arc directions. Click OK. So what we've seen here, while this is coming up, is we've seen we can put the transiting planets up, we can put the natal planets, the progressed, the solar arc. You put so many things on there, you end up with a lot of lines. It gets kind of noisy, but that's reality. All these things are going on at the same time. We could, just look at 1 month, and then it won't be so overwhelming, to see those details a little bit better. Now let me point out a few things here. In my notes I say transiting Jupiter to solar arc Saturn. So the yellow is natal, pink is progressed, white is the solar arc, and here's Saturn, and here's the transiting Jupiter coming up and almost hitting Saturn. No conjunction symbol, not quite exact, coming down. And also another interesting thing is transiting Saturn to the Sun. I didn't make it clear which Sun I'm talking about. Yeah, the solar arc Sun. Here you see Saturn transiting Saturn, making a conjunction to the solar arc Sun in late January. It turns retrograde, hits it again, goes all the way up here, almost hits the progressed Mercury. The pink is the progression, and there's the Mercury at the end of it, comes down and aspects the solar arc Sun again in October. And I could, I can show that in the timeline. I don't know if you, want me to show you all these things over and over again just to confirm, but, there it is. You can see it visually this way. You could see it in the timeline with the specific dates given in that style. Well, I say to go ahead and do it, so let's go ahead and do it. I will show you the transit to solar arc. So I'll go back to Sirius. I will right-click. I'm going to uncheck this. I can have both of those at the same time. I'm going to go down to solar arc, transit to progressed. I've still got that year. And what am I looking at here? Timeline. I wanted to select Jupiter through Pluto only. Is that what I have? Yeah, Jupiter through Pluto. And near the top, transiting Jupiter conjunct Saturn. Not exact. Transiting Jupiter. So this is transit to solar arc. Transiting Jupiter conjunct solar arc Saturn. There it is, January and February, not exact. So again, you see the same information that's in the timeline, in it, just a different way of presenting it. And here's the Saturn conjunct the Sun, January 25th, March 12th, October 16th. I just showed you that transiting Saturn conjunct the solar arc Sun. Here you see it in the Graphic Ephemeris, and in the timeline, you see the same exact thing. Okay, so there's the Graphic Ephemeris confirming what it's doing, how you can see it in the timeline, how you can see it in the Graphic Ephemeris. Two beautiful visuals of the same thing. You can use both of them, you can use one of them, it's up to you. Just because a tool is very nice, the feature is very nice, you don't necessarily have to use it. Maybe you just look at it using some other tool. Now, what's usually done with the Graphic Ephemeris is not 0 to 360 degrees, as I have it here. I did that just for teaching purposes. what's usually done, I'll right-click, very common, is to use the 45-degree ephemeris. You may have heard that term, 45-degree ephemeris. I mean, if you're, familiar with astrology but don't know the details of graphic ephemeris, you hear that term a lot, and that means you're doing 45 degrees, which is also the same as eighth harmonic, actually. And let's see what happens. I'll click OK. Now, I've got a lot of information here. I've got the natal, the progressed, the solar arc. I'm doing an entire year, and transiting Mars through Pluto. This may get extremely noisy. Let's see what happens. And I've got a note here that transiting Saturn will semi-square progressed Mars in April. Well, it's not too bad. I thought it was going to just fill up with lines all over the place. But transiting, what did I just say? Transiting Saturn in April. Here's transiting Saturn. It makes aspects to the Sun. Well, the progressed Sun and solar arc Sun are the same thing, by definition, if you're familiar with what solar arcs are. Coming back up here, Saturn's retrograde, and here's some semi-square symbols. It's opposition natal Uranus. So transiting Saturn is semi-square, a pink line, and another pink line. I follow this to the right, and I see it's Mars and Jupiter. So transiting Saturn, semi-squares, progressed Mars and Jupiter in April. You see how I see that? I just see where these things cross, and it shows me. I can turn these on or off, whether the aspect glyphs are there. That was in the settings. And there it is. And we can look at that in the timeline as well if we want to, just to confirm that. But there it is in April, semi-squaring both of them. And I'll show you that very quickly. You may be getting tired of seeing this both ways, but we're talking about transit to progressed. So let's select day for a year, transit to progressed, in the month of April. I've got transiting Jupiter through Pluto. I wonder if I have semi-squares selected. I can see my background. I've got all kinds of aspects. It looks like I do. I can also go to Customize and click on Aspects and see that semi-square is selected. Good. Click OK. And in April, we should see transiting Saturn, semi-square Jupiter and Mars. There's the transiting Saturn, semi-square Jupiter on April 18th, and the semi-square Mars is down here on the 24th. What if you can't find that? It's getting lost in all this information. What I would do is I would just right-click, and if for example, I could remove the other planets and just look at Jupiter and Saturn very quickly. I could just look at the month of April. In fact, I could do that without even, right here, without even right-clicking. But I'll just do April 1st, 2013, and over here change it to 1 month. So the customizing of any of these things is very quick. Some people, when they're first learning a program, say, "Oh, I don't want to have to right-click." It's only one click. Just click. Do it. It won't kill you. And there it is. And now you have all this detail with the specific, information that you're looking for. And there's the Saturn semi-square Pluto on April 11, and Saturn semi-square Mars on April 24th. So it's very easy. Right-click, 1 year. All right, so I have to change this to January 1st. It's really not that bad, okay? So you get used to customizing, and now you're back to the 1 year view. Or if you just want to look at Jupiter and Saturn, or whatever you want to do, it's really pretty quick to do this stuff. All right, so our main idea here is that we are seeing that the graphic ephemeris and the timeline are telling us the same thing. I have a few more things I want to do. Let's look at progressions by declination. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click. I'm going to remove natal. I'm going to remove solar arc. What did I do here? Yeah, remove solar arc. I'm going to remove transits. I'm going to change the beginning date to 1936, which is the year he was born. If I go back to Sirius, I can look at his wheel and see 1936 is the year he was born. Actually, I think it shows me right here, August 19, 1936. I don't even have to do that. But I don't have to set it to his birthday, but I'm going to set it to the year he was born. I'm going to put this to years, and I'm going to just highlight this, and I'll type, 90 years. Some large number. He's pretty old now. He's in his 70s or so. I probably want to put a lot of years to cover his life up to now. And I'm going to use declination. Now, to use declination, this harmonic no longer applies, and you'll see what happens here. I'll click on OK, and you're going to see what's called a progressed declination graph. Lifetime declination graph, I think, is what some people call it. And it looks really cool. Here's the progressed moon, and this is the declination. And you get this nice wave, and here's a wave of Mercury as, here's 0 degrees declination, and you see, the declination of the planets as they change. So it's a lot of fun to look at this. I've got the progressed ascendant midheaven. That's interesting. I haven't looked at that much. Here's the progressed ascendant declination changing. Yeah. So anyway, here's the progressed moon, which is what a lot of people look at. Here's this light blue area is where it goes beyond the 23 degrees, 27 minutes approximately north and south, out of bounds it's called. And his moon doesn't quite get out of it, just reaches right about maybe a pinch, just a little bit below out of bounds. So these dates where the declination crosses 0, around September 1950, when it reaches its peak, October, November 1956, and so on. Those are dates of critical transitions, reaches a high, accomplishment, fulfillment or action, and a change. Dynamic changes in your life. So that's the progressed lifetime declination graph. And I think did I show you that you can add asteroids? I can't remember what I've shown you or not shown you, but you can add the asteroids. I'll right click. I'll go back to 1 year. I'll just change this to 1 year. I'll change it back to longitude. I'll change this to 2013. And you can put in the transiting asteroids. I can click on Edit Asteroids to add or remove them. Click OK. Let's make sure I don't want progressions. Let's just look at the natal and the transits. Check that. Click OK. And we'll see some transiting asteroids, the ones that I happen to have selected. I'm kind of running out of time. I'm at 33 minutes. So, it's simple. You click on Edit Asteroids List, and you can type in the asteroids and click on this button to add them. Very simple. And there it is. This is very cool. I'm seeing transiting, asteroids and, what did I do? I turned on the natal asteroids here. Let me right click. Oh yeah, because I've got the natal chart. Let me just show you the transits. That'll be enough. Let me just click on OK and just show you the transits. What I was thinking of is to show you, but here it is, with Varuna, Ixion there. Okay, so now I'm looking at just the transit. I want to make it a little less noisy. So here's transiting Sedna, coming through, transiting Orcus and Eris. These are the asteroids I haven't selected. So you can put those in. You can also plot midpoints by right-click. You can add things like midpoints. I think I mentioned that earlier. So last thing I believe I want to show you is something for fun. This is just some weird thing, or I shouldn't call it weird, just a fun thing that we discovered recently. I'm going to go back here, and let me unselect the asteroids. Something I discovered when a customer called up. What planets do I have here? Let's add Sun, Mercury, Venus. I've got everything but the Moon. I think that'll be good enough. Look at my notes here. That should be fine. I'm not sure if I want... No, I don't want the Moon. It's probably too fast. And let's do latitude. You know, I never looked at this very much, but it's really pretty incredible. And I found that it's interesting to run it for a lot of years. So I'm going to do 10 years. And let's just start in the year 2010 so we can see the current time period in context. I think that's what I want, just transiting latitude. You know, you can always just click OK, and if it's not what you like, just right-click and change it again. Yeah, that's it. Is that cool or what? This is the latitude. Well, let me show you what's really cool about it. Here's the latitude distance from the ecliptic plane of Mars, and look at the strange pattern it makes. It goes up, down, down, and then it does. It's not like a nice, simple sine wave. It kind of goes slow and then steeply down. It has this interesting. They go way down and then back up. So latitude really changes in strange ways. That's Mars, and look at Venus. You know, it's got a pretty interesting pattern. It goes, you can see it go up and then way down, up. This time it only goes up a little bit, and then way up, and then pretty far down. And it's got this kind of tendency where you can't even predict what it's going to do. Now it goes way high. It's a little more regular, but here it doesn't round out, kind of goes up. Not as irregular as Mars, but it's very interesting. I never knew that the latitude changes with that kind of, especially Mars, kind of eccentric way of changing latitude. It's interesting. I don't know what to do with it, but it's certainly interesting, to analyze that and look at it. So when you have these tools, it kind of allows you to explore and look at some new things. I'm at 37 minutes. I finished everything. This is a very long video. So that's the Graphic Ephemeris. As always, there's even more things I can show you, but I finished off with a fun little thing that I never really looked at much before. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got a lot out of it. Take care. Namaste.